Hello, welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection, where I go through all the Criterion DVDs that I own. And today we're going to talk about Spine 52, Yojimbo, directed by Akira Kurosawa, 1961. Now, this film and its sequel that I will cover next is an example of just straightforward entertainment, but also has something more. But really, this is a film where you can just enjoy it on the level. There's nothing too deep or profound. It doesn't cover big ideas or big topics. It's just through and through entertaining. And if the thought of, well, I probably haven't heard this film before. How do I trust you that's entertaining? Well, first off, it got remade twice. The first time it was remade was as A Fistful of Dollars, directed by Sergio Leone. But unlike The Magnificent Seven with John Sturges, yes, I now know who the director is of The Magnificent Seven. Unlike John Sturges receiving a samurai sword from Kurosawa, essentially giving his blessing on the on that remake, there was legal complications. It's because Leone was not able to properly secure the rights to remake it, and so it caused a 3-year delay before it's released in the United States. Eventually, obviously, it was released. But basically, if you've seen A Fistful of Dollars, you've seen Yojimbo. And Yōjinbō has nothing to do with the character. Yojimbo stands for bodyguard. But anyways, you think that why should I? If I said Fistful of Dollars, you should kind of know what the plot is. But that's basically what it is. It's a Rohingya who wanders and ends up in this town besieged by two gangs that are one is run by a silk merchant, the other is run by a sake brewer, and they both get into gambling ventures, and they use that as a means of generating more revenue for themselves, and they also use that as a means of control, and they all fight each other. This is a place where the law doesn't really exist. It's basically the law of who's strongest. It's gang warfare, and it paralyzes this town. You know from the moment you walk into this town that there's something really, really off, especially when there is a dog running down the street biting on a severed human hand. He carries it in his mouth and he's running down the street. And this Rohingya, who doesn't have a name, see, looks at this and is like, really? Oh, jeez. Anyways, so he goes in this town and he's told about what is going on, and he uses this as an opportunity to do a cleanup job. And he does this by playing the sides against each other. He goes to one side, does a few things, goes to the other side, does a few things, and just basically works as it so that they kind of pick off each other. And so, yeah, that's basically what A Fistful of Dollars is. So you can imagine what Yojimbo is. The unnamed Rohingya, who decides to name himself the name that he says, which is not really his name. The name that he says translates to 30-year-old mulberry field. Just because he looked outside and he sees, oh, there's a mulberry field outside, I'm going to call myself that. But anyways, he's played by Toshiro Mifune, and I mentioned earlier in Seven Samurai. This is an example of Mifune not going over the top, or as a friend of mine said, does not follow the William Shatner school of acting. Actually, there's another actor that in this film that is closer to that, but This is a little bit more, a more subdued performance, but he still has, there's a bit of a wildness to it, a ruggedness, but it's very well controlled, and this is what's so inspiring. I mean, again, if you've seen not just A Fistful of Dollars, but any of the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns, particularly involving the man with no name, you can kind of see where that all comes from. It's you see the origins of that, and it's just very amusing. It's amusing to see how he plays this, how he gets these games to basically do each other in. And like I said, that this is straightforward entertainment, but there actually is something a little bit more to it when you get right down to it. If you listen to the commentary track provided by Stephen Prince, and this is on, and I believe it's from the reissue. It was not on the. This is another one of those titles that got reissued eventually by Criterion. So I think this is an addition to it, but in the commentary track, the time setting is in the 19th century, and it was at a time when Japan was making, or was on the verge of a transition from traditional feudal Japan to what would become modern Japan. And what the games represented was this sort of modern push, and it does it in two ways: easy money and guns. And so for Kurosawa, this unnamed Rohin is sort of his little fantasy figure of what would happen if you know, this guy who represents an older tradition comes in and starts, you know, makes this one town right. Doesn't save all of Japan, but maybe could make one little section of Japan not go down this dark route. So it's kind of, I guess you could call this a kind of revenge porn of sorts, or revenge fantasy, and you know, doing historical justice. But this is not your typical Rohin, and this is not your typical samurai period piece. For starters, you hear it in the music. The music has nothing to do with period films. In fact, this was ordered by Kurosawa, and the composer uses this as an opportunity to sound like one of his favorite composers, Henry Mancini. And it does have a kind of jazzy feel to it. It's not, you know, it uses the history as a basis, but really it's not. I wouldn't call this historical by any stretch. It's just very entertaining. Now the actor that does embody, is closer to the William Shatner School of Acting, is Tatsuya Nagade, who would later on be a very important actor in Kurosawa's career. Usually when you think of actor-director pairings, in particular Kurosawa, you think Mifune. And you know, Mifune was in Rashomon, Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Sanjiro, The Hidden Fortress, and the last film that he worked on with him was Redbeard. And but Nagadai was Nakadai. Forgive me for any and all mispronunciations. Would later become an important actor for later in his career, and especially in, I think, the best film of Kurosawa's in his late period, and I would even say probably one of his best films, period, Ron. He's in that. So he's not over the top, but there is a sort of craze to him, and he comes off as a little bit demonic. In fact, one of the directions he gave to Mifune, well, he gave this direction to Mifune, where he describes his character as more like a dog, or more like a wolf. And whereas Nagade's character, Unosuke, is more like a snake. And actually, this is what inspired Mifune. When you watch Mifune perform, he does a lot of scratching. Like he kind of scratches himself, as if like a dog scratching for fleas. And it's because of that. It's because of that description on Kurosawa's part that he's more like a dog and wolf. He starts taking on sort of dog-like traits. But anyway, so that's acting for you. But yeah, there's something in Nakade's eyes that just is really, really sinister. And of course, what also makes him sinister is that he is the guy in one of the gangs that harbors a gun. And that is something that Kurosawa comments on every now and then. To him, guns represent modernity in the worst ways. It's an impersonal killing. It's mechanized killing. It's killing without feeling. It's just you hold an object at somebody and then shoot him dead. And he embodies that. Anyway, so it's a very entertaining film. If you just want to be entertained, you don't want to think too much, you just want to have a good time, it's great for that. But this is the other thing. It's not stupid entertainment. There's a big difference between stupid entertainment and smart entertainment. There is some, like I said before, there is a subtle historical, sociological commentary underneath it. But it's not in your face. It does not, and it certainly doesn't get away of the entertainment values. Even if you don't know all those things, you really want to see this guy succeed. You really want to see this unnamed Rohin pull it off, especially when he's told that, when he's given the layout of this town and who's who and who's doing what and who's doing who and so on. And then when he goes like, you know what, I'm gonna try to do something about this, or in his own way, and maybe make a few dollars on the side. And you wonder, how is he going to do this? And then you see it all play out, and that's very captivating. But it's done very well, and it all has to do with the way it's directed, and the way that it's performed, and the way it's written. It's like I said before. It's all of those elements working together to form a beautiful whole, and it's just entertaining. It's just a lot of fun, and sometimes it's good to have fun. You don't have to think so deeply. It's like with reading books. You have your classic books. You have your books that deal with heavy weighted themes, and then you just have your fun reads. I consider this a very fun watch, and it doesn't insult your intelligence. It doesn't pander. It doesn't take huge leaps of logic. You're not questioning character motivations at all. There's enough character intrigue. I mean, they're not the most depthful characters, but there is something very compelling about it, and you go along for the ride. So I'd say, if you want your entertainment, here you go, and you won't be insulted. That's the big thing. I think a lot of films that are entertaining, they come off as pandering and stupid, and this is an example of, and this is not one of those films. So definitely enjoyed for that. So yeah, that's Yojimbo, and until next time, take care.